All right, welcome back. So today we're going to look at the man, golly, might be the basic question that everybody's trying to figure out. Oh man, announcement. That's not the question. Let's hear what they got to say. Bus riders. That's my guess.
Good afternoon, Eagles. I just want to let everybody know that the fire inspector is here. They're going to set off the fire alarms, but don't worry, you can stay in your classroom and everything's okay. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna try to knock this out before this fire alarm. You ready? Uh, so the big question is free will an illusion? Do humans actually possess free will? Um, so there's two schools of thought here: that free will exists and that free will doesn't exist. One of those we see right here, free will. We get that. And the other side of this is called determinism. That term you may not be familiar with, but excuse me, but um, you see this much more in your life than you could ever imagine. Uh, but again, I say this in class a lot. Uh, the more you see, excuse me, the more you know, the more you'll see. For example, so one of the things I know about baseball. Like that's something that I know about because I've done it a lot. Um, so I can look at, let's say, a pitch, say a pitcher. I can look at one individual pitch and I can see it in detail. While somebody who doesn't play baseball, who doesn't care about baseball, who doesn't hasn't studied the game, all this, they don't know much about baseball. They're not going to see the same pitch as I am. They're going to see just somebody throwing a ball. Me, I see like a move in chess. I see like a shot fired in battle. Like that's the kind of things I see. And I see it down to, again, like a very minute detail. So I'm seeing things that they are not seeing. We're watching two different games. So the question I have is, can the same thing apply to life in general? The more you know, the more you'll see. And maybe we're living very different worlds based on what we know. Okay, so let's take a look at free will versus determinism. Can we just click on that? Nope, we got to do that. All right, so what is free will? So, free will is the theory that human beings make choices on their own without physical or divine forces. Physical is what you can touch, what you can smell, what you can hear. That's my best. That's my best hear. What you can taste. I ain't looking at the camera. And what you can smell. And my computer really doesn't have a smell. So that's the physical. Like what you sense is physical. Okay. What you cannot sense, that is what, but again, I guess outside of what is sensible is that idea of the divine. And that is what exists beyond human beings and what human beings create that does not have like matter or that is not physical property. So that is the idea of free will. Again, the theory that human beings make their own choices without physical or without divine forces. Okay, Aristotle. Aristotle was the student of Plato. Plato, the student of Socrates. Aristotle declared that free will consisted of two components. I dropped my marker. Hold on. There we go. Perfect. Aristotle believed that free will consisted of two components. One was freedom of action, and this is the ability to do as one chooses, and then the ability to choose as one chooses. So these two work together, like they correspond to each other, even though they are slightly different. I'll give you an example. So let's say, fixing my hair. There we go. So, oh yeah. All right. So let's say that I'm eating pizza. That's like one of my favorite things to do. I'm eating pizza. Okay. Let's say that I decide, well, let's not even say decide. Let's use a different word. Let's say I'm going to pick up a pizza. I hadn't ordered it yet. I'm going to go somewhere and get pizza. Um, if I decide to go to Domino's over Papa John's, well, is that freedom of choice or freedom of action? I chose Domino's, but I'm driving to Domino's, which is that action. So again, they kind of do go hand in hand, but I had to choose one to do one. You know what I mean? If you don't know what I mean, that's okay, because we're not going to focus too much on these two components. This is what Aristotle, kind of how he outlined free will. But we'll take a closer look as we go. Aristotle claimed that, Aristotle claimed that while actions and choices can be predictable, they are based on free choices of the past and they can be changed in the future. So let's say that 90% of the time I get a pepperoni and mushroom. Now, let's go with something different. Pepperoni and jalapeno pizza. That's what I get 90% of the time. That's not true. That's good. All right, so let's pick this back up. So let's say I get pepperoni and jalapeno pizza 90% of the time. Let's say 10% of the time I get ham and pineapple pizza. So 90% of the time I get one over the other. So you can predict which pizza I might eat because, again, there is a pattern. 90% of the time I choose jalapeno and pepperoni, but I can also choose something differently. So while your actions and choices can be predictable, that doesn't mean that they are set in stone. That is the idea of free will, that you can change as you see fit whenever you see fit. That's the idea of free will. Okay, so let's continue. So the philosophy of free will. So those that believe in free will, philosophers that believe in free will, are known as libertarians. So this is not the same libertarians as the political party. That is something completely different. Okay, but philosophers that believe in free will are libertarians. So here's a basic libertarian argument, and this is like your logical, deductive argument. It's valid, but it doesn't mean that it's correct. Like, things can be valid without being correct. Free will is logically contradictory to a deterministic universe. Again, contradictory means it goes against itself. So free will and determinism naturally go against themselves. So free will is logically contradictory to a deterministic universe. We got that? Good. Humans have the ability to act and choose freely. Okay, just like the whole pizza example. I may get something more than another, but it's still my choice which one that I do. Okay, so free will is logically contradictory to a deterministic universe. Humans have the ability to act and choose freely. Thus, free will is real. Now, that is correct, or excuse me, that is valid, but it doesn't mean it's correct, because how do you know if you act and choose freely? That's the question. And we'll talk about that more in just a second. I gave you some notable libertarian. Again, this is people that believe in free will, not the political party. Not that you necessarily need to know this, but these are just some that if you are interested in looking more into it, this would be the area to go. So Aristotle, Epicurus. Sorry, I always yawn when I do these. It's not because I'm tired, because I could go. I could go right now. I could go for a run. I got energy. I got enemies. Got a lot of enemies. Got a lot of people trying to drain me out of synergy. But yeah, dude, I don't know. For some reason I yawn every time I do this. Aristotle, Epicurus, Rene Descartes, Immanuel Kant. Those are just some notable libertarians. Again, if you're interested in the topic, that would be the route to go. The main reason I tell you these is so that you start recognizing names. And so when you see a name you recognize, when we talk about them again later, you'll be like, oh, well, he must be important, because some of these are much more important than others. Or maybe not. I don't know. Kind of look at it. Hold on. I skipped it. There we go. So what is, let's go cut that last little bit. What is determinism? So determinism, let's put me right there. Determinism, this is the theory that all events, including moral choices, are completely determined by previously existing causes. Now, Zeno, again, this is just one of those names you don't necessarily need to know, but the group of the Stoics, we will talk about that group and some of their beliefs known as Stoicism. He claimed that natural law controls all things. Okay, natural law. We could go into a large discussion on what natural law is, but I think that you kind of if you just take that word or that phrase, that combination of words, and you just And I think you kind of got an idea of what natural law may be. Like it is law that occurs naturally, because there are things like the law of gravity that we believe is just part of natural law. So if gravity is just an aspect of natural law, the natural law is everything that rings true over the entirety of time on Earth, because that would make it natural. And if it's true and it's happens throughout time, then again, like, and there's no contradictory, then it is natural law. Two of the most popular theories on determinism are causal determinism. So every cause has an effect. If I kick a ball, it is going to, well, it's going to go in the opposite direction at a speed that is equivalent to the force that I'm placing on that ball. And it will only be stopped by friction. I believe that's right. I'm not a physicist. I did take a physics class. I'll tell you this. One of the things that got me most excited, not excited, but interested in philosophy is like learning how things are so interconnected. I had this, what was it? It was a constitutional law. Yeah, constitutional law class when I was at Greensboro College. And during that same semester, I had a physics class at UNCG. Long story, whatever. I had to take physics. So I was taking this physics class, and you talk about light, you talk about momentum, speed, force, gravity, a lot of stuff. Physics is kind of like the math part of science. Anyways, so I had this presentation like towards the end of the year to give in my my constitutional law class, and it was about like the police being effective. Like we had a topic, um, and then there were two sides of that, and you were just given like what you were going to defend. Because again, this is constitutional law. You need if you're going to. This is for mainly like pre-law students. If you are going to if you're going to be any type of debater, you have to be able to debate the other side. Okay, that's how it works. So we were given our stance like at random. In my group, we got police are effective. Okay. Now, this is 2014, so obviously the other group had police are not effective. So, we do this whole presentation. Things are going okay. And then, like, my partners, they just start freaking out. Like, it's like I don't even know exactly what to call it, but they just like freeze up and they just are like checked out of this, like nervous. And I'm like, all right. So I try to like take control of the situation, mainly because like I was a senior, I was graduating, and they were like sophomores in college. So I knew that like, okay, well, um, they don't have the same sense of urgency that I do. So I'm going to lead this project. And then when that happened, I was like, okay, I got to take over. So just off the top of my head, this thing in physics that we had talked about just came up. So in physics, like the week prior, we talked about light and how like our light bulbs are incredibly inefficient. Like they waste more energy than they actually put out. And so this hit me right in the middle of that presentation. And so I said, um, you know, police are effective. I said, the the next group that comes up to you guys, because we were presenting in front of a crowd of our classmates or a group of our classmates, like the whole class, each group is like made up of 3 or 4 people. There's probably 30 people in the class. Anyways, so the next group, they're going to come up here and they're going to argue that the police are not effective. I said, but that's not their actual argument. They are going to say that the police are not effective, but what they're actually going to argue is that police are not efficient. I said, and there's a difference. I said, look at these light bulbs. I said, they are giving off more. They are wasting more energy than the energy they are putting out. They are inefficient, but that does not mean they are not effective. I said, because if we didn't have these lights, we wouldn't be able to see each other. So these lights are effective. They may be efficient, but the fact remains they are effective. And I said the same thing applies to police. I said they may not be efficient. There may be discrepancies. There may be mistakes. There may be places where police could exacerbate problems. I said, but at the end of the day, the police are effective because if you didn't have them, then, well, you have nothing to carry out the law and to enforce the law when needed. And then, mic drop, son. It wasn't a mic drop. Well, it kind of was because the next group came up there and they was like, police are inefficient. And then they just kind of stumbled on. So I was like, dude, get some. But that's when I honestly started thinking about like philosophy and how things are interconnected. And so I don't know how I got on that topic. I don't know how I got on there. Every cause has an effect. That's what I was talking about, I think. So that's causal determinism. Every cause has an effect. Yeah, I was talking about kicking a ball, friction, learning that in physics. Okay, there we go. The other theory of determinism is predeterminism. So what does pre mean? Anybody? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you. Oh, okay. Yeah. What'd you say? I can't hear you. Yes, pre means before. Pre means before. So before time, because that's essentially what we are talking about. We're talking about time. Before time, things were determined. That is what predeterminism is. All events are predetermined by the divine. Again, that thing that we don't know what to call. We don't know what to call. We don't know its properties. Some people call it God. Some people call it some deity. Some people whatever. And as a matter of fact, if you've heard the term predeterminism or predestination, you've probably heard it through a religious institution. Now, again, whether that be through Christianity, through Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, you could continue to go on. But this is the idea that all events were predetermined by some type of creator from the very beginning of time. So that takes us to our last slide that we're going to cover today. Okay, we'll talk about our last slide tomorrow. But determinism is around the world, is in the world more than maybe you've ever thought before. So here's some examples. God, keep me on. So here's some examples of determinism. So think about fortune tellers. They are telling you your future. So that would mean that things would have to have already been determined, or things are determined and they're just seeing into the future to tell you what's going to happen. But that is deterministic. The reading of tarot cards, kind of the same deal. Reading of palms, again, same deal. The idea of karma, what comes around goes around. I mean, think about that, for example. So if you are, again, that does invoke some choice, I imagine. I mean, it's cyclical. So it comes, again, it goes around, comes back around. This is still kind of fits into that deterministic worldview because things are already determined. But I guess you could look at that in several different ways. I guess there's an argument to be made either way. Good luck and bad luck. So that your ritual or whatever you do determines if you're going to be successful or not. This is not the same as not up the same alley with freedom of choice and freedom of action. This is a little bit different because you are dependent upon that ritual to get the same effect, the same desired effect. The Farmer's Almanac. So I don't know if you know what this is. This is where my face is. My hair looks terrible. I want my hair to be a little bit longer. I like having longer hair, but golly, it looks terrible for a little while. I don't know. But the Farmer's Almanac. This is what this is right here. So beginning of the year, I guess like the end of each year, the Farmer's Almanac, they put out this again, essentially like forecast of the next year's worth of weather patterns. And so, well, we'll just say sometimes they're correct, sometimes they're not. This is from last year. I'll try to pull up like 2020 and see how they did. But I mean, how do you determine that? This could be from weather patterns, but it's also, again, like you are looking at a deterministic worldview because things are already determined, even though they have not played out. But I guess, again, you can make the argument that weather doesn't have the same properties as human thought in the mind. I would agree. An interesting concept. Some other notable determinists. We have the Stoics, who we'll talk about when we get to ethics. We have Baruch Spinoza, who I'm trying to think when we're going to talk about him. Probably Spinoza, probably more so in political philosophy. Voltaire will speak about in political philosophy, and Isaac Newton. We'll talk about Isaac Newton here soon. Okay, so knock out those questions. I've given you a pretty long due date, and we'll talk about compatibilism tomorrow. See you.